Phil Robertson, the tough, God-fearing man who led the Robertson family and starred in the popular reality show Duck Dynasty, has passed away at the age of 79. His death isn't just a loss to his family and Louisiana hometown, but to millions of fans across the country who admired his honest way of living, strong faith, and deep Southern roots. Phil was born on April 24, 1946, in a small town called Vivian, Louisiana. He was the fifth of 7 children in the Robertson family. Life wasn't easy for them. They didn't have electricity, a proper toilet, or even a bathtub, but they didn't complain. They rarely went into town to shop. Instead, they lived off the land, eating what they hunted and fished, and growing their own food. In his book Happy, 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 Phil wrote, "It was the 1950s, but we lived like it was the 1850s. Still, he remembered those days as some of the happiest in his life. Phil was a star athlete in high school, excelling in football, baseball, and track. That earned him a scholarship to Louisiana Tech University in the late 1960s. He became the starting quarterback for their football team, playing ahead of Terry Bradshaw, who would later become a legendary NFL player and a Hall of Famer. Bradshaw came into the spotlight quickly, but Phil was already there before him. Phil started in the 1966 and 1967 seasons, but chose not to play in 1968. During his time at Tech, Phil threw for over 2,200 yards with 12 touchdowns, though he also had quite a few interceptions, 34 to be exact. Even with his talent, Phil wasn't interested in going pro. When the Washington Redskins, now Commanders, showed interest, he turned them down. Why? Because football clashed with something he loved more: hunting. He once said, "Terry went for the Bucks, I chased after the Ducks." Instead of chasing fame, Phil chose a quieter, simpler life in the woods. After college, he worked as a teacher and even got a master's degree in education in the 1970s. But then came the duck calls. Phil didn't like the duck calls on the market, so he made his own. In 1972, he founded Duck Commander, and his duck calls sounded more realistic than anything out there. Hunters loved them. The business grew slowly at first, but with hard work, and later with help from his son Willie, it became a multi-million-dollar company. Phil's rugged lifestyle, strong Christian beliefs, and no-nonsense attitude caught the attention of TV producers. That's how Duck Dynasty came to life in 2012 on A&E. The show followed the Robertson family's daily life, running the Duck Commander business while living out their faith and family values. Phil quickly became a fan favorite. His simple wisdom, strong beliefs, and faith-centered reflections made him stand out. The show was a massive hit, running for 11 seasons and becoming one of the most watched non-fiction series in cable TV history. It made the Robertsons famous, and Phil became both loved and criticized in the public eye. Phil didn't shy away from sharing his beliefs. He often spoke out about Christianity, the Bible, and what he saw as America's moral decline. In 2013, he was briefly suspended from Duck Dynasty after making controversial comments in a GQ magazine interview about sin and homosexuality. But public support, especially from Christian and conservative fans, was so strong that he was quickly reinstated. Phil went on to write books like Happy, 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 Uncancelled, and Jesus Politics, where he talked about his life, faith, and views. He also started a podcast called Unashamed with Phil Robertson, where he shared Bible teachings, family stories, and cultural thoughts. Through it all, one thing stayed the same: Phil's dedication to his faith, his family, and the great outdoors. Whether building a duck call empire, leading a top-rated TV show, or preaching the gospel, Phil stayed true to himself. Phil met his wife, Marcia Miss Kay Carraway, when they were still in high school back in 1964. They got married in 1966, and their first son, Alan, was born while they were still in college. But life wasn't always smooth. In his 20s, Phil struggled with alcohol and personal problems. It caused a rough patch in his marriage, but everything changed after he experienced a deep spiritual awakening. From then on, he became a devoted Christian and even served as an elder at the White's Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. Phil was also very outspoken on issues like abortion, calling it a violation of America's founding values. In 2013, he published his memoir, Happy, Happy, Happy. Then in 2020, something unexpected happened. Phil discovered he had a daughter named Phyllis from an affair in the 1970s. The family welcomed her into their lives. In 2023, a movie about Phil's early life titled The Blind was released in theaters, showing just how far he had come from those humble beginnings. Sadly, in 2024, Phil was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Though Phil stayed strong in spirit, those close to him could see his health was slowly declining. In his final months, people started noticing his absence from public events and the family's podcast. Rumors began to spread. People whispered about strokes, spine issues, and memory loss. Behind closed doors, his family was quietly dealing with the truth. Phil had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's. It was hard watching the sharp-minded patriarch begin to forget. Along with that, he also struggled with a blood disorder that made him weak and tired. A fall caused a serious back injury, making it hard for him to move and forcing him to stay in bed for long periods. On May 25, 2025, Phil Robertson passed away peacefully in his home in West Monroe, surrounded by his loved ones. His family later shared that his death was caused by complications from Alzheimer's and heart failure. Though expected, it still hit hard for fans and family alike. Even in his final moments, Phil's faith never wavered. He reportedly blessed his sons, prayed with them, and talked about how ready he was to meet God. His last words, according to his son Willie, were simple but powerful. "I'm ready to go home." Phil's funeral was exactly what you'd expect from a man like him, filled with love, faith, and deep meaning. It was held in West Monroe, Louisiana, right where Phil built his life and legacy. The family didn't want a flashy ceremony. Instead, they planned a quiet, heartfelt goodbye, surrounded by close friends, church members, and people from the local community. When news of Phil's death broke, the internet lit up with love. Messages poured in from fans all over the world. People shared how Phil inspired them, not just through Duck Dynasty, but through his bold faith, honest words, and strong family values. His son, Willie, released an emotional statement thanking everyone for their support. He described Phil as a man who never backed down, loved his family deeply, and showed everyone the power of faith and forgiveness. Phil's wife of more than 60 years, Miss Kay, also shared a touching message. She called him her best friend, her rock, and the heart of their family. She talked about how he kept their family strong, even in hard times, always turning to faith as their anchor. Phil's other sons, Jace and Jep, shared memories from childhood, days full of laughter, hunting, and life lessons from their dad. His grandchildren also shared sweet tributes, calling him the best grandpa anyone could ask for. Fans created videos, posted prayers, and wrote messages celebrating the man behind the beard. For many, Phil wasn't just a celebrity. He was a reminder that staying true to your values still matters. Even news outlets reflected on his life, noting how Phil's strong beliefs sparked national conversations about faith and family. Love him or disagree with him, one thing was clear: Phil never pretended to be someone he wasn't. Though Phil Robertson is no longer with us, his legacy is far from over. He left behind not just a family and a business, but a way of life, one rooted in faith, family, and fearless honesty. Through Duck Dynasty, Phil and his family shared their Southern roots, their Christian beliefs, and their daily lives with the world. It was raw, it was real, and people loved it. Phil's voice often sparked debate, especially when he shared his conservative beliefs. But he also encouraged people to think more deeply about their own values. He stood firm in his faith, even when it wasn't popular. Beyond the cameras, Phil was a proud outdoorsman. He believed in hunting with respect and protecting the land that fed his family for generations. He taught others to value nature, not just use it. But above all else, Phil's greatest impact was on his family. He passed down a legacy of belief, strength, and purpose. And that legacy continues through his children, grandchildren, and everyone he inspired. Phil Robertson's life was a reminder that you don't need to be polished to have purpose. You don't have to be perfect to live boldly. He lived simply, believed deeply, and loved fiercely. As we say goodbye, we remember a man who didn't just change his family's life, he touched the lives of millions. Phil Robertson is gone, but his story, his faith, and his values live on. May he rest in peace. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, drop a comment below, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, stay inspired.